Now tuned in to the Chop Shop. I'm Retro. Let's get it. We in the Chop Shop. We live in the Chop Shop. We talking sports talk. We live in the Chop Shop. We in the Chop Shop. I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up. It's live in the Chop Shop. We in the Chop Shop. We live in the Chop Shop. We talking sports talk. We live in the Chop Shop. We in the Chop Shop. I'm talking sports talk, so turn your dials up, it's live in the Chop Shop. Yeah, it's lit in the Chop Shop, turn your dials up in the drop top. They ain't based to debate, but they keep it fact straight, going 30 for 30. Let's do a first take on Facebook Live from 12 to 2. Rob Hatter and Jim Hicks going back and forth like Claude Ray, Skip Bayless and Stephen Smith. From on the court, off the court, straight to the field. Not a man that steals, but I made it steal. To the octagon where I fight to kill. We go face to face, then you write your will. I don't play tennis, but I bring the racket. I'm on the floor, I attack the basket. Put you in the casket when I'm overlapping. Never showing mercy, cause I'm always snapping. Never showing mercy when I'm in the arena. Step into the ring, he see me as I beat him. Step into the court, I'm never backing down. Killing competition, I'm smacking down. Let me get back to the other stuff at the Chop Shop, cause they cutting up. It's Retro coming to you live to the Chop Shop. Now let's turn it up. Yeah, we in the Chop Shop, man. Shout out to Jim Hicks and Rob Hatter. You can catch the Chop Shop live from 12 to 2 on Facebook Live. Let's get it. We in the Chop Shop. We live in the Chop Shop. We talking sports talk. We live in the Chop Shop. We in the Chop Shop. I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up. It's live in the Chop Shop. We in the Chop Shop. We live in the Chop Shop. We talking sports talk. We live in the Chop Shop. We in the Chop Shop. I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up. It's live in the Chop Shop.
Welcome, guys. Women Rock Wednesday. Yours truly, Jim Hicks, the Chop Shop, your midday sports happy hour. I know this was a surprise for you guys to see me up in the saddle this early on this Women Rock Wednesday. Yes, indeed. We got a lot to wrap with. Robert Hatter is on location. He's traveling. Shout out to all you girls, all you guys and girls out there. Karen Thomas, you definitely gonna make the Women Rock Wednesday starting 5. Sonia Billingsley, Madonna Johnson, Mindy Collins is up in that joint as well. Hey, Mindy, what's going on? Hey, one thing I want to ask you guys to do early on is to, how about if we can share the show right out the gates? Let's get a share. I'm going to share right along with you guys. And I'm just waiting. I see you, Trey Phillips just pulled up in there. Michael Smith, I know you're traveling all over the country, getting that good bread. Let us know what state you in, what city you in, where you representing at on this Women Rock Wednesday. I'm waiting, everybody, getting everybody a little chance. I see Reginald Simpson. I see you, Rabbit. That's what they know him as Rabbit. You play in the No Excuses Pro League, or back in the old Pro-Am days. He was definitely one of the most popular officials in the building. Still going strong. First, at the top of the show, I would like you guys to take a moment and to build your strength up. And we're going to dedicate today's show to Clyde Jackson. He's an avid viewer of the Chop Shop, avid listener of the Chop Shop. Whenever he's moving around, he puts it in his ears, right? And Clyde experienced some extreme turbulence on yesterday. He learned that his son had committed suicide. Yeah. I say it again. Clyde Jackson. You guys build up the strength and send your well wishes. You can DM him. It's Blue Chips CEO. I think that's his handle. And Clyde's son, he learned he's in Las Vegas. Couldn't get another flight out. And that's one of the most helpless feelings in the world. You're trying to get the hell up out of there. Can't get up out of there and move your plane up. And we got to strengthen him up. This is tough. And so man, Clyde, stay strong, my brother, like a little nephew to me, like a little brother to me. And you never want to get that type of news. We're going to talk about the Pangos camp. I'm back from traveling in Las Vegas the last couple of days. And I have a full recap on rcssports.com. And the recap gives you guys a lot of intel, a lot of details on every single player who represented the state of Texas that was in uniform and participation at the camp. And I'm just waiting. You guys get your shares on. Let's come on and get the share. Let's share the show. Get this thing popping. But in total, there was about 14 players from Texas that got invites. Now, not all of the players who got invites actually showed up. Some had stuff that come up, injuries, whatnot. Among those that didn't, there was about 5 of them that got invited but did not make the trip. And shout out and congratulations to those: Ashton Hardaway, Cameron Barnes. Those are 2 from Duncanville High School this past season. Jacoby Walter, who had just competed for a spot on USA Basketball, 18 and under team. Jalen Lowe from Fort Bend Marshall High School. Trey Johnson. And also there were a couple that showed up but did not participate any more than 1 game tops. And that is Drew Steffi and Justin McBride, both from the DFW area. That's 7 right there. Then there's another 7 who competed for the most part. I mean, played in at least 3 or 4 games. And all 7 of the players from Texas who competed either earned a spot to the top 60 game or the top 30 game. And basically, and I want to tell you guys, I want to share you guys later how the players are selected. And because I firmly believe that I probably would have helped correct a blatant error that was applied in this process, in the selection process. You know, a lot of stuff is opinionated, but then when you got 1 in particular, 2 for sure, and of our local kids, and we're going to talk about that later on. But meanwhile, let's congratulate and put them in order for those who made the top 30 game. I mean, they took 25 players, right? I'm sorry, tripping. 15 players and put them on 2 different teams to make a top 30 game. And I think they played like 2 25-minute halves. In the top 30 game, you had KJ Lewis from El Paso, Chaplin High School. He's a rising senior. and he was selected. He averaged 18 points a game. He led all of the Texas-based players in scoring, if that's a measuring stick that you would use. And in camps, whether you like it or not, scoring is a measuring stick. Because there's not much defense stressed at camps like this. Most camps like this. KJ Lewis, and of course the second young man, only 2 of the 7 was picked in the first game. And I mean in the top 30 game. KJ Lewis and Robert R.J. Jones. Robert Jones, he attended John Paul High School in Dallas, and he has announced recently that he's transferring to a prep school, Wasatch Academy, located in Utah. So, Robert Jones, KJ Lewis, congratulations. The other 5 from Texas were selected to the cream of the crop, top 60 game. That means there's another 15, and they call it the top 60 because the other ones was top 30. Now, among the players who selected this game, congratulations. But not all 5 of them received the congratulations in the same manner, meaning that there was one who felt like he had won, had his name called on Price is Right. I'll tell you about that in a second. Then there was a couple other ones. There was another one, right? Or maybe 2, who probably knew they didn't quite play good enough to make that top 30 game. You know, okay, this is justified. And then there was another 2 who were flat out disappointed because they felt they had performed enough to make their top game. So let's go back to the one who was the most elated. And this is a young man who basically was virtually a national unknown just a few months ago. He led the entire state of Texas in blocked shots this past high school season, despite being only a 10th grader. I'm talking about Robert Miller, right? Robert Miller is at Pasadena Memorial High School. And he did not put up the numbers that would normally substantiate a selection, but he earned it there from the intangibles. Sometimes, now the odds are stacked against you, but sometimes, if you're trying to play it the right way and you're just the right kind of teammate in a setting, and you don't do much whining, hardly none, then guess what? You can be rewarded. And so Robert Miller proved that. He was selected. He embraced that accomplishment. That's a nice resume builder for a young man of his stature. He's about 6'9". He started off the summer circuit with TJ Ford, then went and played with Live On, and in recent weeks, he made the debut with the Houston Hoops 17U on the EYBL circuit as a reserve. Robert Miller is a definite name to to pay attention to. College coaches, if you're watching right now, telling you, Robert Miller, understand, he's one of those players. Remember JVF Francis when he was in high school, right? Remember JVF Francis? And he went to Westbury Christian and he transferred over to Montverde. And I said, well, with JVF, a player like him, you got to look at him on the defensive end. Start your evaluations on the defensive end of the court, period. Because the offense is still under construction. Well, this young man, same thing. Look at him at defense first. Remember, after all, he led the entire state of Texas. He didn't just lead all 10th graders. He didn't just lead all people in Region 3. He led the entire state in block shots per game. So that's going to be the marketing tool or the marquee for you guys to understand how we advertise and promote young Robert Miller. Now, I said that was the one player who was happy to be there. The two that was satisfied probably was Zayden High from the San Antonio area. He's transferring to Compass Prep in Arizona. He plays with the JL3 EYBL team. And also he recently tried out for the USA Basketball. Did pretty good. Sometimes pretty good ain't good enough. But did pretty good. Some folks thought he should have definitely made the first cut, if not the second, based on his performance for that weekend. Performance during the days when the college coaches were watching. Shout out, I see you out there, Nissa. Women Rock Wednesday. I see you. And Zayden High did not put up a lot. His numbers were modest based on coming in, knowing that you just came from USA Basketball and you just sharpen your iron against iron. I would have expected a little bit more productivity. I don't know if he was nagged by injury. I don't know nothing, but he played. He played. Didn't look injured. Minutes were kind of, 18 minutes a game. He only put up about 6 points, 4 rebounds a game. But once again, it was rewarded. Some guys make the game. They get selected based on their reputation or their national merit at this type of camp. Once again, I'm going to explain the process shortly. You guys remember that. Keanu Dawes from Stratford High School. Keanu Dawes, KD Dawes, he was another young man, kind of like Robert Miller. He was a virtually nationally unknown until a few months ago. And Dawes plays with the Texas Takeover program. He was consistent. He was really, Keanu Dawes was solidly consistent. I like what I saw from him. He didn't do anything goofy that would have hurt his stock. And that's a good thing about Keanu Dawes. I'm looking at the numbers. First game he had 20, second game 4, third game 10, fourth game 14. Is what he produced. The rebounds 6, 4, 8, 4. Rebounded pretty well. From 3-point land, he was 5 for 14 on the weekend. It's not bad, not great. And Keanu Dawes, mid-range, did a lot of damage. Rebounded when he did get his hands on a couple of them. He goes, he makes his length felt. Goes, he can get the rebounds out of his range often. It's just that he was one of those young men. Probably may have been his first camp of this stature. So you got to realize by the time you get the cobwebs and the bugs out, then hell, the camp is on down the line. You know? Yeah, Kevin Freeman, I'm back in the South. And so we're talking about Pango's camp and going through, mind you, if you're just tuning in, all 5 Texas-based players were selected to the All-Star games that they have at the end of the camp. So that's 100% of the players. I think this is the 2nd year in a row that every single player from Texas got selected to one of the All-Star games. To put it in perspective, there's no other state that can boast that statistic. This year, California had 26 players invited. And somehow, you know, I understand. Tape, that's another thing. Bookmark that. We'll get into that later on. But right now I'm talking about these 5 from the 2nd All-Star game. Top 60 is what it's called. I mentioned Robert Miller. I mentioned Zayden High. I mentioned Keanu Dawes. Now I mentioned Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson joined us on the Chop Shop yesterday. Chris Johnson had just finished playing and going off, thinking that game, I think he scored 20 in that game. You understand, 20 in a camp, guys, is like, it's probably like you scoring 20 in the camp is almost like scoring 38-40 in a high school game. For real. And then you put it in perspective, the abundance of talent that you're playing against. 110 players here that was there. Probably easy. 98, 100 made, will probably be Division I signees. Easy. If they qualify. And shout out to Buffington up in Dallas. And we're gonna get into that topic. Just hold tight. I'm gonna get this out the way because I'm gonna explain how the voting process works. Right? And Chris Johnson had played well enough, performed well enough to definitely earn a slot in that top game. However, that was one game. And that one game that Chris played in, and that may have been one of the games that, who knows, that game I did not watch him in, but that was his worst game of the weekend. What if the voters, that might be the only game they're paying attention to you in? Remember, there are 3 games going on at the same time. 3 at the same time. 2 of the courts side by side, but the other one is separated by brick and mortar. But I believe that Chris ended on a good note. But if some people saw that game, in that particular game I'm talking about, Chris, he finished with only 3 points. He was 1 for 10 from the field. 1 for 10 from the field in that particular game. Now, Chris was so disappointed. Remember, on the Chop Shop yesterday, Chris Johnson joined us. He had just finished dropping that 20 ball. And he was like, he wasn't even thinking. He was like, I'm going to quote him. I'm enjoying myself. It's a great experience. I'm going to come back and try to and get this MVP later on. The MVP he was talking about, it wasn't of the top 60 game. He was thinking, he was trying to go and vie for the MVP in his mind of the top 30 game, which he later learned he was not selected to. Understand, I think and felt that Chris Johnson should have made that top game. However, a guy like Chris Johnson, remember, when you come into places, you already have a jacket on your back. And there are some people that already have morphed an opinion about you. And without even knowing you, and then therefore they're not going to give you time of day to occupy any type of space in their mind or in their heart. That's just how life works. You use this moment of being snubbed as motivation to go out and kick the next guy's ass. You follow me, guys? That's the beauty of it. That's one of these solutions, right? One of these solutions. You can use it to your advantage to say, okay, they want to. This is how they want to rock. This is how they want to play it. Okay, all right. I got something. I see how you want to do this, and that's exactly what Wesley Yates III did when he was snubbed from that top 30 game. Wesley Yates III averaged 15 punts a game. His team went undefeated. To some folks, winning don't matter at camps. Guess what? And that's fine. Each his own on what matters to you or don't. But I'm saying whenever it's close or there's a decision to be made, tie normally goes to the winner. They went undefeated. He was a gamer all the way through. And I was so sure that Wesley Yates and Chris Johnson was making the top game that I went off to lunch. He had about an hour break. And went up to lunch, had a quick meeting, your hobnob. And I said, well, you know what? I'll get there toward the end of this first game because I way out, I catch and support Chris and Wesley. No disrespect to the other guys. And saw through them, but I figured, they might. And of course, KJ, we knew KJ was supposed to make it, which he did, to the top 30 game. So I get the phone call as I'm leaving the restaurant that Wesley didn't make he was assigned to the top 60 game. Right? I say, wow. So immediately I started thinking back on what had just happened. Remember, I was so sure. Some things I didn't think that I needed to lobby for something that I thought was obvious. I learned something this past weekend. Because had I known that Wesley or Chris was on the bubble, right? Had I known that they were on the bubble, I would have made sure to insert myself or my opinion into the meeting. So it leads into the question, and we'll come back to that. How are the All-Star games assigned, selected? Well, for those of you who live in DFW and in Texas, there's a Pangos all freshman sophomore camp that takes place every year in October. Used to be the second weekend in October, then they moved it, and it goes right on top of our Super 16 extravaganza, which is basically the fall high school championships. And that has definitely depleted the potency level of the Houston area kids that go up there, that used to go up there everywhere. Dino's used to attract a nice crop of the talent from this area. Well, that camp, when they select, it's ran pretty much in similar fashion as far as the format. And at the end of by the time that last session comes, most people have already narrowed down some of their picks for the All-Star games. So what he would do, he would pick the brain of, I'm talking about years ago when I was able to attend that freshman sophomore camp in Dallas. Can't do it anymore because it goes on top of the Super 16 extravaganza. But he would go and he would get Mitch Malone. He would get to pick the brain of Stacey Houston. I think those were two of the guys who basically unlocked the door for Dino's to even come into the gate, into the fence, into the yard of Texas to establish and put up shop. I may be missing somebody, but if you're from DFW, I know Mitch Malone, Stacey Houston were among the locals from DFW who actually set the pick for him to establish that camp. And basically pick some guys. You can give input. You can write your numbers down of people you recommend. I recommend number 1, number 24, number 72, number 58, and you can submit them in. Or sometimes a guy may walk around and ask you and pick your brain. But there's a core with the camp that's familiar and consistent with this camp. That core is Dinos Trigonis, his name is on the camp. Ronnie Flores, who's based in California, who assists on business partners with Dinos Trigonis. And the ball is live and whatnot. Also Frank Burleson, who lives in California, is part of the core. And last but not least, Van Coleman, who lives in Las Vegas, Nevada. And Van is that fearless foursome is basically who's in charge, primarily, has last say, collectively, on the participants in those All-Star games. Now, this past weekend at Pangos Camp, I need you guys to share this, because then more people need to hear this as we get into this. That way now we can have a civil conversation about this in elite camps and All-Star games and your expectations. And of course the magic word, the elephant in the room when it comes to this stuff. And that is what? The old word that is hard for many to digest, politics. Well, here's the thing. This past weekend, before I was going to decide I was going to eat lunch, I looked around and I looked for Dino's, and I noticed that Dino's, Van Coleman, Frank Burleson, Van and Frank, they also share chairs with me on the selection committee for the NBPA Top 100 camp. Frank Burleson he's an OG. He's been around, guys. Frank Burleson was the lead high school writer for the Sporting News. You guys remember the Sporting News? They used to compete with Sports Illustrated back in the days. Frank Burleson was the leading high school college writer for that way back in the trap. So he's an OG in this. Van Coleman, he's done a lot on the technology side, and he had his own camp, and he had his day on the West Coast, and had camps and whatnot. And Ronnie Flores is just like his ability to innovate and through this grassroots sector is probably unmatched. He's a smart fellow, and of course, if you guys didn't know, Dino's is he's a lawyer, he's an attorney. So I looked around and I finally found them in one of the rooms. I went looking around like, where? I know they're meeting right now. Just want to make sure. Let's go find them. I go and I finally found them. And I found them, and I spoke, because I hadn't even haven't seen Ronnie Flores the entire 2 days. And he was sitting where he was positioned sitting at the table. I just was maneuvering from the other sides of the gyms. I hadn't seen Frank Burleson all week. I saw Van, I saw Dino's. Those four were in the room. Nobody else. Had I known or felt for an inkling that Wesley Yates and Chris Johnson was on the bubble, I say it again, I wouldn't have not went and ate lunch. I would have went to sit down in that room and do just what I did a year ago. A year ago, the camp was held at the Tarkanian complex. And that same meeting was going on, but they needed statistics. They needed the stat sheets. Alan Branch, Chris Walker with their Accelerated Metrics company provided the statistics, the box scores. Now, in order to validate some of the players they were selecting through, they wanted a hard copy of something. So as Alan Branch was didn't know where they were. I say, Branch, they up here meeting. Come on, I'll go with you. They picking them right now. Now when we get up here, it might be a player or two from out of our region. Remember now, just follow my lead. And sure enough, when I got up there, there was one particular player, and I told him, I said, well, Branch, what they're going to do is, you get up there, you'll see one guy if he's getting snubbed, and only the guy you know you're getting snubbed. I'm not asking for no favors. See, that's a difference. We're asking for justice. It's a big-ass difference. I'm not asking you, hey, man, help my kid out, give him a spot. No, hell with that. I'm going to alert and point out on these numbers and show the stats. Hey, man, this dude did this. He just did this. And he did that. And one of the young men, I think at the time that I said, well, Branch, I'll pick one. They're not going to push back. They'll let me get one in thinking that they're doing me a favor. But there's really going to be justice. You could do the same thing. Because that means now we done got two in from Texas. Remember, I told you, every player from Texas got picked to the All-Star games last year. So what I did, I noticed it was a young man who was his name was just surging upward, and he had a good spring, but the nation hadn't embraced him yet as being a bad mofo. He was leading the camp in assists for the most part. Then the last game, I think he dipped into second place or something. And I was like, oh, this dude here, he was leading in assists. And he's averaging about 10 a game, 12, 11 a game. But he's leading in assists. And he's balling. And he got moved from the second game to the first game. That's how simple it was. I did what you call lobbying for him. He has no idea to this day. I promise you he has no idea to this day. Or his parents, or his folks, or whatever. Well, somebody did. I remember I went down and I told his grassroots coach after I came back down the stairs. And this young man, guess what his name was? Arterio Morris. He was going to be in the second game. I went and lobbied. He got in the top 30 game and showed up and showed out. The rest is history. He signed with University of Texas. He should be on campus right now for summer school. And I went downstairs and I told Big E, look out for your kid, man. He almost got snubbed. So, and Branch did the same thing. I can remember the kid that Branch got in. He lobbied for him. We were in the room and we didn't understand, by default, wasn't invited in the room. We bulldogged our way in the room. I found that foursome. And understand, it wasn't like they said, no, get out of here. No. When I walked in the room then, I didn't feel it. I didn't think that was a need. I just felt I didn't. I went to eat. Otherwise, so that way, when it's in part, Herb Baker, you're right. I really feel I could have avoided. It could have made justice been served if I had chose to be. I chose to stay in. I peeked in the room, spoke in the classroom, and at that moment, it was a moment where they could have said, "Hey Jim, come over here. I want to ask you something." I'm really hungry and wanted to eat because I know I'm not going to have time to eat after this camp. My plane leaves at 5:30. The first game is at 1:45. The second one is right afterward. Got to turn a rental car in and get to the airport on my own in their time constraints. So I'm saying, man, they didn't say come on in. They just spoke, "Hey Jim, what's going on, Jim?" You know, I needed to be in that room. So for that, I can, for as justice and justifying, you know, I definitely can apologize to those two young men at the least, because that's one of the things that I was there to do, is to make sure everything will go. If something, you know, now if they playing in it's subpar, you know, but in that situation they both had did it. Wesley Yates for certain, because as you asked Mr. Rick Brown, did Chris Johnson's past catch up with him? I don't know. But I do know that people already have preconceived notions and opinions about kids. And when they finally see you, guess what? You're playing from the negative. That might have been it. Not sure. But let me tell you what Wesley Yates did in that All-Star game, that's top 60 game. He went out there and opened up a fresh can of whoopers. WHUPAZZ. 6 3-pointers, 24 punts, and a W. And an MVP of the game. That's how you respond. So when I comes back from lunch, at the time, I don't know Chris Johnson hadn't made the team. I don't know none of the other Texas guys hadn't made the first team. I just got the call about Wesley. So as I walked in the building, the first game was just ending. May have been 15 seconds left in the game, 20 seconds when I walked in. Remember, I planned it just right. I'm gonna watch this second game. I'm gonna see, but then I got word on the way back. Wesley playing right now. Chris, mind you, when Chris learned that he was assigned to the second game, Chris Johnson's, I'm just paraphrasing, he didn't say this, I wasn't there, but basically, well, put it like this, Chris didn't suit up, he took his stuff off. He said, I ain't playing, I'm not playing. Because now, he did have a hand injury, but he was playing through it. But he chose not to let his hand just finally rest. It wasn't worth risking anymore. Bottom line, no, not playing. So that's what Chris didn't play. Wesley played. 24 punts, 6 3-pointers, MVP of that game. So as I walked in, I had a couple of guys from the media. I walked over to the table. I went to use the restroom, washed my hands first. You know, after I washed my hand and I put some soap and I gargle a little bit too. Just ate, you know. Like mouthwash, rinse it with some soap and water with the left hand. So then I'm good. I go out here, get my thoughts together because I need to talk. And I want to know, how did this happen? In a civilized manner. Before I can even get to Ronnie Flores and Van Coleman and Frank Burleson, the Dinos, he was walking around with the microphone. So before I can get to the table where they were sitting side by side, 3 white media guys that's not from Texas. One of them says, the biggest snub in the history. I said, excuse me, what are you talking about? He repeats it, but he adds something, he clarifies. The biggest snub in Pangos history. And I'm still confused because it's catching my mind is on something else. Then he says, isn't Wesley Yates from Texas? Isn't he near you? So yeah, he said he's the biggest snub in Pangos history. Then the other 2, it was 3 of them, they join in. That's a fact, absolutely, and they chime in. So now they're saying it in earshot. Ronnie Flores, Van Coleman, Frank Burleson are all about 6 feet away. I hadn't got to them yet. And both, they just like, I looked over at them, basically put their head down. So around that time, Dinos is coming to the table. And no, it's not a scene. It's in the middle of the games, changing from one to the next. Kids are doing layup, in the layup lines. So I said, Dinos, how did this happen? I really don't even remember Dino's answer. I really don't. Then I say, well, Dinos, the only way you can make good on this, I'm telling you, he'll tell you, I know you remember me saying this, because I said it to him and to the table. The only way y'all can make good on this is to add Wesley. You got to, it's your camp, your rules. Add him to the next game. And that'll make good on it. And Dino's response was, we filled up. We don't have the space on the next game. So I say, well, no, you mean tell me nobody left? Everybody has stayed here? Normally they have one kid got to catch a plane because he has a plane scheduled and, you know, got it selected, but I'm gone. And I was thinking maybe Mikey Williams wasn't going to play, but he did. And they had no, so I stayed there to watch the beginning of that game. Watched KJ play and RJ Jones play a set before they subbed out, and then I left. Had to get on to the airport. But that's the kind of that's the story. So now back to the politics part. Let's get into this stuff right here. Jaylen Warren, yeah, Beaumont is not a big enough name for them folks. Yeah. It's not. Not on the West Coast. It's not. That's just like, you know, if you thinking Dallas, and you start thinking about Arlington, they're not gonna say, the kid from Dallas go, they ain't gonna say Arlington. Well, I'm gonna go a little further. You know, Capel. They're not gonna say. They're gonna say DFW. Allen. They're gonna say maybe right outside of Dallas. Allen. But now back to this stuff on politics. Here's the thing, guys. Y'all all know that politics exists in this stuff. I preach this avidly about politics, but it's about being on the right side of politics, in a timely fashion, in an opportune manner. And all camps have politics. All layers of basketball, of youth sports, have politics which apply. You guys know that in some manners. You know it before you even attend. Remember, this very camp, not this very one, but this one, as well as the 9th and 10th grade Pangos camp, has long been accused of having some of the all-stars picked before the games are completed. That's been an accusation for years. The thing is, since last year is when they first started supplying these statistics. Last year was the first year. And now, mind you, what the statistics does, it can help the evaluators to supply them with facts that can support their theories and opinions. Right? And so, in doing so, I'm just thinking now on number one, I blame myself for not, how would I say it, from not being humble enough to assure myself presence in the room when they were making those selections. May have gotten a little too cocky, you know. And what you see on court 3, that don't mean the other guys see it on court while they on court 1 or court 2. That's the part we don't get. And that's the part about all camps. You guys that went to the Rice team camp last weekend, they had the same type of setup as Rice team camp. You had 2 courts side by side and another court down the hall. Well, guess what? If you on court 3, then it's no way for you to understand. You can know it and become privy to the stats later on, but you wouldn't be able to understand how a person played. And that goes vice versa. Because let's get it straight. While I'm there, my primary, I said it yesterday, I have 2 reasons: to support all of the players from Texas and Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, the Arklatex. Then I had a couple of names that are on the bubble for invites to top 100 camp, and my eyes would be the tiebreaker for a certain amount of for a couple of kids. So while my primary was that, then that means I'm not really paying attention to a whole lot else. You follow me? And it's only rightfully so. It's human nature. If they had 20, I said earlier, 26, 27 players from California who were invited. I'm not sure how many actually showed up from California. Not sure how many showed up, but definitely they were the most populated state. Don't you think, if I'm thinking this that way, do you not think that Frank Burleson, who lives in California, Ronnie Flores, who lives in California, Dinos Trigonis, who lives in California, Van Coleman, who lives in Nevada, don't you think that the California, Nevada, and even throw in Arizona for that matter, their kids are going to get the first dibs of attention from them? That's human nature. I get it. I get it. But you guys got to understand that going in. You probably didn't know. Everybody probably thinks it's a fair process. Nah. No. Favor ain't fair. And it's right, Buff. It's much cheaper. But then understand now, Pangos camp, you pay your own way. This ain't top 100 camp. Pangos camp, you get there however you get there on your own. So, to me, it almost had a feel of a California, like a West Coast versus the world type vibe. I'm about to wake you guys up. Like a West Coast versus the world. That's what it kind of felt like. Texas has more Division I players. Right? In California. So, do you think that California warrants twice as many invites as Texas to this camp? I ain't say people that actually showed up. I'm talking about the invites. So you can invite a person, they can turn it down. You can invite a person, they can accept the invite, they cannot come. Twice as many. So that goes to proves right there. I'm looking out for my people. Ain't nothing wrong with that. It just gets pretty wrong when other people look out for their people. Waking you guys up. Also in camps like this, there are certain players, the way it works, it's not necessarily well, whatever. Sometimes you're an event director, you have to do what you got to do to get certain players in the building or certain teams there. You got to make some amenities. You got to eat some expenses. And if you're going through that problem and eat some expenses, make some amenities, guess what? And you don't put them, and they don't get favor, put it like that, then it's probably gonna be a problem. It's probably gonna be a problem. Remember, Texas, a year ago, we had one, maybe 2 or 3 kids that people from the rest of the country, especially California, cried wolf, cried like hell when they saw the list out and they were saying, how did this kid and this kid get in this top 30 game? And as you saying, this I'm reading some of the comments. Buff said, you say, is the purpose of y'all being there is to be in the room, ain't it? No, Buff, that ain't the purpose of being there. That ain't the purpose of being there. It was more so, I just gave my two reasons. You probably asked the question before. I just gave the answer. I'm going there for support. It ain't my camp. I can't make them people do that. Now I can go and fight, like litigate, right? Lobby is a better choice of the word. Go lobby for some people that's justified. That's justified. I would not lobby for nobody that's not justified. I don't play those games. I'm not for hire. Just it is what it is. But remember, the process of selecting them, here's the deal. A homework assignment for the day is for one of you guys to look at the list of the top 30 All-Star game. Because I'm curious, because somebody asked me this morning. How many of the top 30 that made it, where are they ranked nationally? Trying to see if it's a trend for if the majority of those players are indeed the guys who are more higher ranked than the others. I say the majority, not all. Let's say maybe 20 out of the 25. If they're ranked amongst a higher than a certain number, then you can see a correlation. If somebody can go and pull that up, you know, the normal measuring stick is an ESPN. Of course, you go, but let me know which rankings poll that the player is ranked the highest on. That would help if you would do so. Anybody, you know, I would welcome and embrace that data. Then I can tell tomorrow, I can see, okay. So, and it'll be clear as daylight for a lot of you guys to see just what some of this stuff is and was. Don't get it twisted, guys. It's not, understand, guys, it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, people get snubbed all the time. I'm just giving you the understanding of the why. Because now with Chris Johnson, understand, gone off, and the bell curve is set. And luckily, Wesley Yates responded in the manner which he did. Because that means now that it was known. And I know from looking in their eyes, it was known. After that game, not before the game. After that game, it was known they made an error. And in the business, guess what? Nobody gets them all right. It's okay. It's just the ones who act like they never get one wrong or act like they never missed on one. Guess what? It happened. And a guy like Wesley Yates leaves there is bittersweet. You left there, people remember you as when on the last thing they saw. I would have rather for Wesley Yates, let me listen to me closely on this. Let me drink me a sip of this water. I want you guys to get this. I would rather for Wesley Yates to have been on the second top 60 game and hit 6 threes, scored 24 points in 23 minutes, mind you. and get named MVP than to have been on the first top 30 game, played 18 minutes, end up with 4 points, 3 shot attempts. People remember that last. Nobody remembers what they ate for breakfast, only what they ate for dinner. Wesley Yates served supper in that game against this other guy. He wasn't the only one in that game that felt they got snubbed. Don't get this twisted now. They just say that was the biggest snub in Bengals. It was some others that felt they got that felt. Understand? It was indeed some others. I'm looking at the numbers. Wesley Yates also had 5 rebounds in that All-Star game. 24 points on 9 for 15 shooting, 6 for 10 from three-point land. No turnovers in 23 minutes. That's the highest minute total on any of the 15 players on that particular team. They won the game, by the way, and a W, 123 to 110. And 4 the other Texas-based guys were on the other team. Robert Miller, Zayden High, Keanu Dawes. Remember, Chris Johnson elected to not play. Now we got an asterisk if you guys want to still count Galway Dual, Paul Dual. Remember, he and Tyler Smith were on the same middle school team that played in our middle school city championships when they were in the 8th grade. They got upset. If I'm not mistaken, in the championship, they got upset. Doug Jones, if you're watching, who was on that team that upset them that year? That means they would be a rising senior as well. Who was on that team that upset Tyler Smith and Galway Dual, Paul Dual, that particular year? I want to say yeah, he helped me out on that. Meanwhile, Rick Brown said, what's stopping Texas from having one? Texas has a camp of such stature. It's the camp that John Lucas does in the fall. They have one of such stature. It's just not marketed and doesn't have the longevity probably of Pangos. But John Lucas, his camp in the fall, he has one for girls and one for guys, and that's pretty much, But the thing is, if you just tune into the Chop Shop, we're gonna ask you guys to share the show. We're on the back 9 officially right now, and I'm gonna ask you to share the show. Right? Share the show. Oh, okay. I see there we go. And Hatters is trying to join us later. Shortly. I got him queued up. But meanwhile, we're just talking, and I'm giving you guys understanding on from the Pangos camp. Meanwhile, if you just tune in, also want to give our top of the hours, we'll give our heartwarming prayers for strength for Clyde Jackson. His son, he learned last night that his son had committed suicide. Right? And so shout out. And also, if that ain't enough to put a dent in your heart. I also learned that a young man who plays a high school student on the local grassroots scene, right? He was shot and killed last night in Houston. And I'm not sure of his age, but he's a minor. I don't know if he's under 18, so I don't want to say his name just yet until I'm assured that. But the way it sounds, that it was an execution-style murder. Young man played for the Texas Takeover basketball program. Right? Texas Takeover. And according to the report that I got, they've already produced an arrest. The brother of his best friend for the killing. So I'm looking now. Buff asked another question. Did the kids from Texas that made the top game deserve to be in the top 30 game? Buff, all I can do is give you the numbers, and I'll give you the stats, and you can, that part there, I wasn't in the room. For KJ Lewis, he averaged 18 points a game. He was 7th in the camp in scoring out of 111 kids. Scoring points per game does matter for the most part when you're factoring in selections for the All-Star game. R.J. Jones, he averaged 5.75 points per game, 1.5 assists per game, 1 steal per game, and he played 27 minutes per game. So, if you're a measuring stick, now in the All-Star game, he did score 6 points. Scored 4 assists, had 4 assists and 3 rebounds in 14 minutes of action, which translates, if he averaged 27 minutes a game and he played 14 in the All-Star game, that's roughly half. That means if he got 6, 4, and 3, that would kind of equate to 12, 8, and 6. Played solid in the All-Star game. Does it deserve to be there? Them numbers there, you figure that out. Thanks, Thaddeus Moody said he's gonna try to put the list together. Seneca Johnson, what's going on? I see you on the Chop Shop. I'm gonna get you guys to share the show real quick. I'm gonna share it with you if you would do so. Share the show to your timelines, to your friends. Ed Russell say, what's the number to the lady for the traveling agency? And the traveling agency, Miss Williams, Tonya Williams. And I'm going to put that number on the, we always try to help if possible. That's the traveling agency. I'm going to put that number for you, 214-785-2465. And that's Mrs. Williams. There you go. I got you hooked up. We're gonna get back and talking some. I'm just going through and asking some of your questions right now. Trey Phillips say, do you think if you had the opportunity, let me put it up here for y'all can see it. Do you think if you had the opportunity, they give you a spot or two for those kids? Trey Phillips, I'm absolutely 100% positive that if I would have been in that room and would have stayed in the room, and had I known, that's what I didn't think it was a need to, that it was an option, then I guarantee you one of those would have made the top 30 game. I'm pretty positive. I can't guarantee that, ain't my camp, but I'm pretty positive on my influential skills on that. And I'm looking at, I'm going through some of the comments now, guys. And this is another thing. You said it right. Mark Edwards. Check this out. Texas seems to be represented well at the USA basketball trials, right? That's going to be June the 16th. They're going to start the trials for 17 and under. Wesley Yates is going there. And the way that Wesley's been playing, remember, he got cut his first time going. So the cobwebs are off. Wesley's been playing lights out at EYBL, right? Think about it. You got to think of players' performance as a stock. You look at a stock chart. You know, Wesley is trending up. He's what they call a buy, not a hold, not a sell. He's a buy right now. His team, the Live On, finished first place in their division in the EYBL. They've qualified for Peach Jam. They don't even have to go to the next segment. The next segment on the first live period, they don't even have to go. They don't have to go. They've already won 10 games. They could save that money and eat better in Augusta, Georgia. Right? So hold on one second. We got somebody, hold on one second. We're gonna get you right. There we go right there. Man, wait a minute. This Negro done shot Hookie. Hey! Wait a minute. You are accomplice to this Negro gonna shoot Hookie, got me flying back so you can go out there and walk on some dirty ass grass?
Y'all gotta remember, this is a circle, Jimmy, it's the circle of hope. You remember we had a guest on the show? This is the circle of hope that benefits the young girls who've been been abused in the house, and they have, helped them out a lot. So they got Jim Hicks. How the hell they got Jim Hicks' name up on my name? But that's why I'm here today. Yeah, it's a very important thing. It's better than you in a gym watching some little ball beaters hit a basketball. I bet you that. I bet you that.
The damn grass ain't green. The grass ain't green. You gotta go. Where the hell you at?
Hold on.
You in a cornfield?
Hold on. Is my turn yet? No, it's your turn. You hit already? Go ahead. I'm working right now. Man, hit your shot, man. But Jimmy, hey Jimmy, take me out the picture and put me on mute, and I'm gonna come back in a minute, okay?
All right.
Take me out the shot.
No. Get Gary the camera. We want them people want to see you swing that ball and miss. No. We're gonna see this right here. We're gonna see this right here. We're gonna show all this. This is gonna be one take. Don't let him put the ball back up. Let's see him swing at the ball. This is gonna be Charlie Brown at his finest.
Hold up, where's the flag?
y'all look.
Can y'all see me?
Here we go.
right, baby. Y'all ready?
Here we go.
Y'all ready, Jim?
Here we go. Boy, where Kevin Freeman at? Kevin Freeman say the greens is bad out there. Kevin Freeman say the greens is bad. Hey, boy, I swear to God. Hal, if you missed this, let me tape it with my phone. Boy, if you missed this ball, one of y'all screen tape this thing. If he missed that ball, this is going to be the opening of the Chop Shop every day next week.
Oh. Not where I wanted to go, Jimmy. But just to let you know, hey, players play, baby. Big time players make big time plays. You can go on up, Kevin. I'll meet you up there. Yeah, big time players make big time plays, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
Hey, Rick.
Talk about today.
Rick Brown say the greens look dry as hell. Lance Ardoin say the grass look dry. Trey Phillips say the greens brown.
Guess what? Both of them are incorrect because we ain't been on no damn green yet.
Hey, Leonard Ardoin say them ain't greens, they're them collard greens. He said them collard greens. Hold the dang. Boy, the Chop Shop, y'all something else. Y'all something else. He said them collard greens, you playing on collard. Them mustard greens, you playing on.
Well, you can keep talking. You good. It's up there? Hey, man, guess who my partner, Jimmy? Hey, Chop Shop, guess who is my partner today? I'm going to show y'all why I had to be here today. Y'all guess who my partner is? Wait a minute. She just knocked the piss out the ball. Hold on. I'm going to let her sit down. She tired right now. She tired of carrying me. Look, y'all. Look who's next to me. Kendall Jackson is in the building.
What's going on, mama?
She said, what's going on? Hey, I knocked the hell out of that ball going that way. Hey, guess what? I was not going to be quick. I was not going to miss that ball. Because y'all, hey, what y'all about the swing? What y'all think about my swing? It was long and wrong.
Yeah, man.
But that's enough, y'all. Y'all enjoy yourself, man. I'm going to go out here and represent, and I'll see y'all later. Okay?
All right, of course, that's Robert Haller right there, guys, and he is on at the golf tournament, the Circle of Hope, and they are golfing and for with a purpose today. And of course, he has Gary Carter out there with him. Gary say he's only there for the photo shoot. Gary, you supposed to go find that cooler and put your hand in that cooler and stick in there and grab your 2 of them cans up out of there, 2 of them bottles, and that way you can swallow them while you're driving that cart out there. I'm going to tell you, that's how you work that thing. They don't invite me out there no more. Ain't nothing going to be left in the cooler when I get done out there. That's for sure. But now, guys, we shift gears on the Chop Shop. Tonight, Game 3, Boston versus Golden State. It's going down. Series is 1-1. Remember, my stance is still the same. I'm rooting for Game 7. However way that we can get to Game 7, that's what I'm rooting for. This means Boston needs to win tonight. And I'll explain to you why. Boston needs to win tonight because if they win tonight, then a loss on Friday would not be as detrimental. Because if Boston lose tonight, then they almost got to win. They don't almost to it. They got to win on Friday. They win tonight, it takes that urge and that urgency off of them. Because they can lose. Boston has already shown us they have the capacity to win a game on the road. They've done it all playoffs. They've won 9 games on the road, guys. So guess what? It's nothing new for them. Now, meanwhile, once again, If Golden State win this game tonight, that means, once again, Boston has to win that next game. That's why this game is so important for Boston. It's so important. Marcus Smart is not going to finish with only 2 points again. Horford is not going to go the first half, the first quarter, and not take 1 shot. That ain't going to happen tonight. You see? Meanwhile, at the same time, Klay Thompson ain't supposed to keep playing, shooting the ball subparish as he's been doing so. Something is going to give from game to game on both sides of the ball. All right. The pressure is definitely on Boston. I put it up on the screen for y'all. Pressure's on Boston right now. See, because Golden State can lose this game and they can still come back and win the next game. They left there with a win. You go on the road saying, I want to get one of these. Right? Remember, the series is 2-1-1. 2-2-1-1-1. The Draymond Green, the media is playing into that narrative about him and his technicals. And truth be told, certain players, you guys might know, certain players can only play. They can perform best when they're self-motivating themselves, when they're doing something goofy. Draymond is one of those guys. When he's being that villain and personifying that villain role, that's when you get maximized Draymond Green. I think the words that Steve Kerr used is passionate and emotional. Passionate and emotional. But the key to it is the X factors are going to play a part and going to be the key things tonight, just as the X factors was in game 1 when Horford scores a career high in the postseason in game 1. Just like in game 2 when the young fella Poole come off the bench for 17 points. The X factors is going to play a part tonight as well. You know that before the series started. We all know that. So who's going to be the X factor tonight? For Boston, it's definitely Marcus Smart. Because his energy is pretty much, he's their passionate and emotional description from the Boston Celtics. And that's right. Mindy gives it. Women Rock Wednesday. We're gonna get. Mindy says Boston got to create a cushion to get ready for that third quarter run that Golden State goes on. Boston got to be creative with their defensive schemes in that third quarter as well. Then why does Boston have to wait on Golden State and to try to contain them in the third quarter? Why can't Boston turn into Golden State in the third quarter for once? Hit them in the mouth and get after it. Right? I was looking also today. Oh man, I'm trying to figure what time today is the championship of the women's softball. The championship. I'm trying to pull it up and see for you guys what time it comes on. Texas and Oklahoma is playing, and I told you guys, oh, it's this evening, 7:30. 7:30. Ooh, man, that's right on. That game will be right on top of the basketball game, which comes on at 8 p.m. Central Time. Texas and Oklahoma. This is game 1 tonight. Oklahoma 57-3 on the season. University of Texas 47-20-1. They're the first unranked team to make it to the championship of the World Series, of the Women's College World Series. How about this for Texas? I picked up a stat, and I want to say, some of y'all can look it up. I want to say they have at least 7 young ladies from Greater Houston on the University of Texas softball team. At least 7. You guys can check it out and fact check me, because I may be off a number. And Sonia Billingsley says, I'm ready, let's go UT. You know what? I just don't want UT to get swept. I'm going to root for all those girls from Houston, but at the same time, Oklahoma has a young lady on their roster. She's a freshman from Houston as well. She's a reserve. I mean, rightfully so. They're the #1 team in the country. She's a freshman. She's from C. King High School. And her mother is a teacher, taught alongside Sandra. Trey Phillips say game time is cigar time. I want you guys to help me with something. So if I have a relative, I got a text last night. We got a relative in town from LA, first cousin, and her husband. They leave on Thursday. They're going to have a dinner at one of the restaurants for some of the family to come in, like an Amistad moment. Come and meet you, kinfolk you hadn't seen in so many years. The NBA Finals is on tonight, and this Women's College World Series is on tonight. The dinner is set for 7 o'clock. What should I do? What should I do? Softball at 7:30. NBA at 8 o'clock. The dinner is for 7. I'm waiting on y'all to come in. Help me out on it. I need y'all to help me out on that. And meanwhile, Minnie said I gotta go and DVR everything. Man. Trey Phillips say eat quick. Record both, have your phone fully charged. Troy say family over everything. So y'all saying I need to go to the dinner. My family, my mom, brother's daughter, and her husband. And after all, it's gonna be Papados. I mean Papacitos. You know, Wednesday. And Wednesday's date night. So Sandra don't even know this, but she probably gonna be tired. And ain't gonna probably want to come. Come up with a stomach ache. I like that one. Let me put that up on the screen. John DeGrew say, come up with a stomach ache. I got a plan. So if I brought this, would that be out of line? If I sit toward the end of the table, brought this, put the game on, that way everybody they can see it at the end of the table, and everybody can be happy. That's my problem solving. I just thought about that. I can bring this, my little iPad. That's what I can do. That's what I can do. That's what I can do. I got that. I got you. I thank y'all already. That other say you might as well not go. She said that's too big. Use your phone. Come on now. Come on now. They supposed to know. They from California. First of all, she married a guy that don't like basketball. Dawson, you gonna get me in the doghouse. And Mr. Barnes said, take him to the blend in the Woodlands. You can eat, smoke, drink, and wine. I was just in the Woodlands just last week, and we watched the game. Might have been game 2. Yeah, game 2. We went to Bar Louie in the Woodlands. They say, look, they can't be offended. She said they may be offended because they're taking me away from family time. It's taking away from family time. Sonya, they invited me 24 hours ago. Matter of fact, it wasn't even 24 hours ago. Yeah, probably 24 hours ago. You just invited me. Well, the group, they just invited everybody. Hang out. Okay, wait a minute. Callahan, that might be the play right there. Tell him you gotta go. Gotta go feed the puppy. Gotta go feed the puppy. Remember that. Gotta go feed the puppy. Get on back in. But anyway, guys, now I want to remind you. We talked and we shared a little bit, of course, on politics and stuff. And I hope you guys understand, every camp you go to, there's a level of politics. I'm just revisiting something. But the thing is, a lot of people try to act like it isn't and act like it don't exist. And that's when the problem, that's when the problem comes, when they act like it don't exist, right? They act like, like, oh man, it's just, no, it's politics everywhere. You try to find out the facts as what your odds are, then that way you won't be disappointed. Remember, Robert Miller walked away from that camp probably happier than anybody except for KJ Lewis and maybe RJ Jones. He was happy as hell. He was cool with it. They probably put him in the newspaper in Pasadena. They'll probably run an article and say, this is what this young man did. Why? Rising, going to the 11th grade. And I was thinking about Pasadena. They've had some talent to come through there in the last couple of years. Remember, Jarrell Colbert and Keon Edwards was at Sam Rayburn High School just 3 years ago. They went to Sam Rayburn, 4 years ago. Pasadena ISD. The school, Pasadena High School, won their first playoff game in 28 years last year. You got Frank Watson, who's now the head coach at South Houston High School. They made had a successful season with all those youngsters and going to be one of the favorites. Dobie High School, they went undefeated this year in that district. with a new coach. Undefeated. Robert Miller. And boy, them people were swarming around. See, at these camps, it's a magnet for a lot of those prep schools that you see. They often have somebody in the building, and their job is to remember they're playing the role of a recruiter. Their job is to find that parent, ask them they can get 5 or 10 minutes with them, meet with them, try to start establishing a relationship to try to get them to come to their schools. It was a whole conglomerate of prep school representatives in the building at Pangos. I had a good talk with the NCAA folk, getting some Q&A about some stuff. I always like to pick their brain. They love trying to pick my brain as well. And we know that Texas is likely to vote in name, image, likeness in January. That's the word nationwide. The state of Texas is going to vote in. They have, you can tell who's going. When you do a vote, you kind of know if the vote going to be tight or if you got enough momentum, or before you even present it to the table for vote. To the floor for vote. Texas is going to be the player in the name, image, likeness. And that means high school players will be able to benefit from name, image, likeness. If you think it's bad now, I'm going to tell you what's going to be the new tomorrow. The new tomorrow would be, let's say, the top 5 players in the state get together, and they all going to put their names together, and they're going to run a camp. Not a camp like Pangos, but a camp for the little kids, the little ones. They'll run a camp. It'll be a shotgun camp, but then every alumni, let's say if one kid is going to Texas, one is going to Baylor, one is going to A&M, one is going to Texas Tech, one is going to U of H. Whatever alumni base they have in that particular city is going to send every kid that's a relative that they know, they're going to sponsor the kids to come into that camp. That's one way to eat. Remember, I'm innovative in this stuff. I'm giving you guys some. This ain't what nobody told me. I'm telling you what's a play. And all the thing is, those guys aren't in the camp running business. That's like the Patrick Beverly camp that come to Houston. Patrick Beverly don't actually run the camp. His people run the camp. There's somebody that runs the camp. Remember, Rajon Rondo's high school coach runs that camp. Patrick Beverly's name is on it. All you got to do is wake up, come to the camp, bring some energy, and engage. Same thing for these young people. Right? So, I'm reading my messages. Thinking about old Clyde Jackson right now. But hopefully he should be on his plane, boarding his plane to get back to Houston. If you hadn't heard, his son committed suicide late last night, which is a tragedy to learn from Clyde Jackson. I want to remind you guys to check out the VIP news on rcsports.com today. check that VIP news out. It is outstanding. We have details from a lot of the stuff we talked about earlier from Pango's camp. We have full details and evaluations from all of the kids from Texas who participated this past weekend. Also, we got big news, breaking news. Alief Elsik High School has hired their new head coach. You want to get the name and find out who it is? Go look into the VIP news on RCS Sports. Go check out the VIP news on that. University of Houston, their team camp is this weekend. It's going to be probably off the chain. Rice University had an elite camp scheduled for this weekend, but they have canceled it. Now, I don't know the reason, but I heard something about COVID. I have not clarified that at all, so don't take it and run. It's unconfirmed. Somebody mentioned that COVID is a reason that the camp from Rice is being canceled, right? And with that, one young man, his parents I met at Pango's camp, and they're from California, right? By way of Detroit, Michigan, right? Mr. and Mrs. Chappelle, and their son was coming to the Rice camp this weekend, and they had just got the word that it had been canceled. So give a shout to them. I told them I would shout them out on the Chop Shop, and that I am doing indeed. Also coming up, June the 21st and 22nd is the high school tune-up, right? The high school tune-up is basically an opportunity for your high school coach out there. That's the 21st and 22nd is a Tuesday and a Wednesday. You have the option to play on either day, or you can play on both days. It helps your team shed the cobwebs and the nervousness if they plan to proceed and go and participate in the Duncanville TABC event in Duncanville. This high school tune-up, once again, June the 21st and 22nd. It's a Tuesday and a Wednesday. The games will be in the afternoons, in the late afternoons to evening time. We for more info, just send an email to the Chop Shop box, and our email box is chopshophtx@gmail.com, right? chopshophtx@gmail.com. And also, and once again, that high school tune-up, those are for high school teams only. This is not for grassroots teams. High school teams only. Some of the teams that are already participating, Stratford, Dobie, Bel Air, Booker T. Washington, Seven Lakes, Second Baptist, Madison, Davis, Channelview, Elsik, just to name a few. And once again, unlike the TABC event, your head coach cannot coach. But here's the thing, this event serves more than that purpose. You also can be able to, as a coach, you want to evaluate those kids from the other side of the bench in this particular moment. That way now you can really fine tune in from the other side and see what's going on. That's going to be June the 21st and 22nd. Also coming up, we got the JRB events is back in motion with the Juneteenth, the All-American Juneteenth Classic. That's June the 17th through the 19th. And we're in conjunction with the TNBA, Eric Love at the TNBA. We have 2 locations, a south side location and a north side location, which is kind of innovative. Why? Because teams that live closer to the south side location, you get to choose which location you want your games to be at based on first come, first serve. You get to choose which location you want to play at. So that means now it gives the opportunity for parents to save gasoline, save money. That's what I'm just thinking about the consumer. I'm always going to think about the consumer. And that's one of the things people mistake. And sometimes they'll feel like, well, man, you know, I may be too hard on some people sometimes around the city in doing events. I'm not studying about what somebody else is doing in their events. I'm studying about if people are doing events and they're not treating the people right in this city. I'm studying about the advocating and being able to inform and educate and in some form influence the parents to stand up for their rights as a consumer when you go into some of these youth basketball events, including mine. So yeah, and then sometimes when you calling some things out, you become a pest. You become a thorn in people's side. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to get you guys because you guys have the power. As a consumer. You know, this money is shorter nowadays, not longer. Expenses are higher. I've learned in the South, guys, have y'all been to the store? Next time you go to the store, haven't you noticed certain packages have, they're making the packages smaller. Instead of going up on the prices, you think you're getting the same thing, you're getting less in certain packages. True, not joking. So the money is what I try to save you guys some of that. And the young man who was gunned down last night, he attended Spring High School. He was teammates he played for Texas Takeover. His name is London. You guys, I'm not sure what is London's last name, but it's another senseless killing. Also, last not least, we are, I mentioned the Juneteenth, and you guys can, if you're interested, we're still doing registration for the Juneteenth, All-American Juneteenth Classic. Also, the GMI is coming up, the George McClellan Invitational. It is NCAA certified. So you have the option to play in the certified division. If your team is kind of janky with their paperwork, you can play in a non-certified division. 2 different divisions, 2 different tournaments per se. And also, that GMI, you can go to their website, and it's GMFcares.com. GMFcares.com. That date for the GMI is July the 7th through the 11th. the 7th through the 11th. Right? And the GMI has served as a long staple in this community for a long time during the live period. There will be a few college coaches there. It's not going to be like a sneaker event. It's not going to be as big as the Gasso, but every court is a main court at the GMI this year. So you think about that for those that play in the live portion of it. Every court is a main court. And that means you get, you can go into that attention and sleep in your own bed and use some of that extra revenues later on in the month of July. Right? And 1400 Hub, we talked about Wesley Yates and Pango's camp for a whole hour. You might want to go back and watch the show. He received MVP. They picked MVP, one from each team. That's why they call it co-MVP. He was MVP he was MVP of the game because his team won and his fingerprint was all over it. They have to pick one from both teams. That makes it co. But Wesley was the no-brainer, unanimous on his team, of that game, that is. And also, Mr. Barnes, you says you haven't heard nothing from Chris McDermott this summer and his teammates in grassroots. Chris McDermott is playing for the JL3 16 and under team, and they are competing to try to earn a spot in Peace Jam. Chris McDermott is actually, he's playing well with them. It's not dominating. He's one of the better performers on that particular team. Definitely leading them in rebounding. And one of the top 3 to 4 scorers on that team. He hasn't been dominating as we would think a number 1 ranked player would do in the grassroots season. He dominated in the high school season, and now he's leveled off in the grassroots. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Meanwhile, you got a guy like Robert Miller, we talked about earlier, is trying to come and get his cookies. Zion Pipkin, haven't heard much from him all summer. You have to realize this class, and the one thing about it in this grassroots season, you get to see. That's why 2025, that's the class of 2024. 2025 is where I can hang my hook on. That class is a monster. It's the whole state is loaded in 2025. I can't speak for the state in 2026, but I know Greater Houston is loaded in 2026. That's the incoming freshman right now. Loaded. So we're in good shape. We're back. Not to mention as though we never left. Because if you look at the numbers from the NCAA, Greater Houston has the second most players in Division I basketball last year. So that's the ticket on that. But guys, I want to thank you guys for Women Rock Wednesday for tuning in with us. I want to thank y'all for joining the show. Thank y'all for sharing the show. For those of you, thank you. If you're on YouTube, I see you, Rod Wells. Give us a thumbs up in the YouTube Boom Boom Room. But it's time to slide on down Dino's back and yabba dabba do this thing on this Women Rock Wednesday. I'm going to get ready to land the plane right now, but I'm giving you guys time to get one last good sharing. Meanwhile, we'll leave with a moment of silence for young London, as well as the son of Clyde Jackson, as we get out of here.